They are the most advanced and heavily protected vehicles ever built. Operated by technicians prepared for the worst.
You're taught how to crash through a blocking vehicle. What happens if the vehicle in front of you is hit with an RPG?
But behind the bulletproof glass and armor plating are secrets. Secrets so frightening.
The voice over the radio told us, Air Force One, you have a bomb on board. It will explode in 5 minutes.
So incredible.
After the initial impact, I peered through my windshield and looked over at the president.
So shocking.
The .50 caliber sniper rifle will knock down a commercial aircraft.
That they must be kept hidden from the public.
There is an electromagnetic skin on the plane designed to ward off impulses in case of a nuclear attack.
There are those who believe in the existence of a book. A book that contains the most highly guarded secrets of the United States of America. A book whose very existence is known to only a select few. But if such a book exists, what would it contain? Secret histories? Secret plans? Secret lies? Does there really exist America's Book of Secrets? It is the most technologically sophisticated aircraft ever built. A flying command and control center, designed exclusively for the world's most powerful leader. Its code name is Air Force One.
It is the seat of military command. It is the most flexible airplane in the world, the most flexible monument that the U.S. has for the president.
It's the only way to fly. It is a magnificent aircraft.
He can live on it, he can command battles from it, and he can be the statesman for the United States from it.
Today's Air Force One aircraft is a militarized version of a Boeing 747, standing nearly 6 stories high and stretching out longer than the White House. The floor plan is classified, but reports indicate there is roughly 4,000 square feet of space spread across 3 levels, with enough seating for 70 passengers and 26 crew members. Modifications include a private office for the president, a large conference room, and an extensive communications center.
The president is at the head of a very large, sprawling, complex military organization. And things happen all over the world. So he has to be in constant contact with national security advisors, the vice president, the joint chiefs, members of Congress. All this requires very robust, encrypted communications.
28 Hotel Fox, radio check, out, copy.
The United States Air Force is responsible for Air Force One and treats every presidential flight as an official military mission. Prior to takeoff, ground crews inspect the runway for any debris that could damage the plane. Security teams scan the skies and surrounding landscape for potential threats. And flight crews inspect every item before it's loaded onto the plane, making sure the president remains safe and healthy while on board.
All the food served on Air Force One is purchased by the Air Force One flight attendants. And what the flight attendants would do would make random shopping trips to any of the Washington, D.C. grocery stores. So there was no way for someone to infiltrate what was being served on the airplane. Almost never do we buy anything at foreign markets just for protection, just to make sure the president doesn't get any kind of food that we have no knowledge of its background.
If the worst happens and the president or anyone needs medical attention, there's an onboard health facility staffed by a full-time doctor.
In the medical compartment, there are 2 fold-out racks that you can put a patient monitor. There is a fold-out operating room table with an operating room light. There's oxygen. There's equipment that you can use to defibrillate, put a chest tube. I've sutured a Secret Service agent on Air Force One.
But if there is a secret unknown to most of the public, perhaps it is the existence of a second, identical Air Force One that is used every time the president flies.
We've swapped them in the middle of trips, and the people on board don't know the difference. We actually will place their personal belongings at their seats in the exact same place when we have to switch, and no one ever knows that we swapped. The only way you can actually tell is the tail number on the back of the airplane.
People might wonder, well, doesn't that cost a lot of money to have these 2 planes flying around? And it does. But the feeling is that they never want the president to be stranded.
While many believe Air Force One is the name of the presidential plane, it is, in fact, a code name. Started in 1953, when President Dwight D. Eisenhower's aircraft nearly crashed into a commercial airliner.
He was on a trip to Florida, and the Air Force never wanted that to happen again, so they decided they had to have a special designation for the president's plane, and they came up with Air Force One. And so whenever the president is flying, no other aircraft has anything close to that designation, so it's not confused. So Air Force One is not the name of a particular plane. It's the name of the plane the president happens to be on.
In order to minimize the risk of a collision, airport flight controllers must clear the surrounding airspace for all Air Force One arrivals and departures.
They pretty much freeze an airport for 15 minutes before and after Air Force One takes off or lands. It does delay other air traffic. It does cause disruptions at airports. But the presidents love it because they never have to wait. They get on the plane and they just take off.
Security at non-military airports is heightened to ensure that the aircraft is not tampered with. Access to the plane is strictly controlled to prevent any explosives from being smuggled on board. As an added precaution, only the left side of the aircraft faces public areas and buildings, protecting the president's quarters on the right side of the craft from unwanted exposure. But despite the elaborate preparations and security measures, Air Force One has been threatened. In 1999, while transporting President Bill Clinton from Athens, Greece to the U.S., an unidentified voice came over Air Force One's radio, delivering a shocking message.
The voice over the radio said, "Air Force One, you have a bomb on board. It will explode in 5 minutes." The conventional wisdom said that the only way they could get a bomb on Air Force One was through the carry-on luggage.
Immediately, Secret Service began to move all passengers to the front of the plane and their luggage to the back.
During the time that we were doing that, the voice over the radio was counting down the minutes, giving us the 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. And at the end, he laughed and said, "I hope you all die." Obviously, nothing happened, and I've never gotten any update on whether or not the person on the radio was ever revealed or found.
While the details of the frightening threat remain a secret, it is clear that Air Force One is a tempting target for a terrorist attack. But could the simple act of distraction have once protected the president from a possible threat?
There was a famous case within the Secret Service when President Clinton went to Islamabad. That was probably the most dangerous trip that a president has taken. The itinerary became public, and the concern was that people with shoulder-fired Stinger missiles would be fired at the president when he took off. That was a case where they did have a decoy.
What he actually did was walk around the C-17 in front of the press, but when he got behind the C-17, there was no direct angles for the press to see what airplane he got on.
Flights into active war zones present their own unique problems. During President George W. Bush's 2003 Thanksgiving flight into Baghdad, senior pilot Colonel Mark Tillman executed an evasive flying maneuver known as a steep spiral descent.
When you take the president into a war zone, it requires incredible precision, and there was a good deal of debate as to what aircraft we should take. You know, Air Force One is so universally recognized that we thought that might be a problem. There was a question of whether we should take an unmarked military transport plane. In the end, we decided that it was most advantageous to have the capabilities of Air Force One, so we decided to use that platform to go. But it remained very secret. I believe there were probably 5 people on the ground in Iraq that knew we were coming before we landed.
Missions in and out of dangerous areas can be planned for. But what happens if an attack comes while the presidential aircraft is in flight? What defensive and offensive capabilities are available on board Air Force One?